Hello, guys. I'm not sure whether you know me or not, but some might know me. I'm a doctor and I'm a microsurgeon by profession, but I'm interested in writing and interested in many things. A few months back, we had a big meeting of very trained, highly trained, highly ambitious professionals. Actually, they were a meeting of plastic surgeons, and they had asked me to talk a little bit about something which is non-academic, which is uncharacteristic of many of these meetings. So I presented this, some dangerous ideas. I don't know whether you will agree with me, but I'll put these ideas forward for you to think about. That's all I told them. See, it is not like everybody will take everybody's opinion, because see, even though you are trying to speak facts, there will be your opinion, some of them, and that can be a problem. So this talk, what I had put it as was some dangerous ideas. If you want, you can run, but if you want, you can think also. It might change your life somewhat, and it might make a difference, as it did to my life a little bit. Okay, let us see what see from a young age. I was thinking about a lot of other things other than the straightforward path to academics and career and all that. So one of the things which I thought about was, what do we want? What do humans want? See, what is the purpose of our life? So then one straightforward answer is that we are all trying for happiness. I'm not talking about ultimate meaning, though that is a different topic altogether. Happiness, isn't that what we all want? Well, that's true. So we think that we will achieve something, we will strive for something, and then we will achieve a level of happiness which will make us happy. You know what? We'll achieve success so that we might become happy. But the problem with it, with all this, is that the definitions of all this can be a problematic. But there is a deeper problem. You see, when we look at happiness as a psychological construct, as we all have, we can measure people's happiness. We have scores for that. We have subjective experiences, scales for that. We can average happiness of countries can be measured, communities can be measured, people can be measured and compared. So that's how we get this happiness index and world happiness report and all that. But when you look at happiness of a single person, one characteristic thing that strikes you is that every person seems to have a baseline level of happiness. It might depend on their genes, it might depend on their gene environment interactions. So, a substantial amount of happiness is inherited from your parents, because it shows very good concordance between identical twins, and also early environmental influences. But we really don't know. Some people say, okay, 70% of the happiness level is relatively fixed and it cannot be changed by external events. Some people will say, okay, it is like 50%, or some are environmentally related, or that. But whatever said and done, it appears that most people, most of us, or indeed all of us, have a certain baseline happiness levels, which are definitely affected by our external events. But in what way is the problem? Suppose a person, a baseline level, is a little bit unhappy. That person, we know, okay, he is a little bit unhappy, or he or she is a little bit unhappy, and that is his state of mind. That is his happiness set point. That's what they say. Most people, see, what we have to understand is that most people have a happiness level in the mid ranges. People generally report that they are generally quite happy. Okay, some people say I am happy most of the time. I am very happy. Some people say I am satisfactory. But it is rare to get a person that says, "Oh, I am always unhappy." So it's not like you're all people are unhappy. No, most people are like quite happy, but they want to become happier. Okay, that is what we want. But suppose we are a little bit unhappy, and what do? We think that by making more money, we can become happy. And that's one of our desires. Suppose I have a desire, I want to study, I want to have a professional career, and I have to get some money and said, then you have that desire. But once you get that desire, you basically adapt to it, and then you again return your baseline state of unhappiness. Isn't that a problem? That seems to be a problem. This is called the hedonic treadmill. It was described long back. In fact, we know about it for a long time. You see, what happens is that when you have something that exceeds your expectations, then you become happy. But what is the problem? The problem is that when you get it regularly, you get used to it, and you do not, your expectations are met. And when it is a routine thing, you are no longer happy. You are not particularly happier than before. For example, suppose there is a very poor person. He's very happy if he gets one good square meal a day. That's what he expects, and he's happy. But suppose he gets one more meal a day. A rich person gives him some money. And he gets to go to a very good restaurant and have a dinner, which he is not used to. He's never had dinner. Usually doesn't have dinner. Then he becomes very happy. But suppose a person gets a lottery and he becomes a rich person, and every day he's having 3 or 4 meals. Will that make him happier? Initially, yes, maybe for 1 or 2 months, but then again he will become unhappy, or will come back to his set point level. Not exactly unhappy. He will come back to your set point level. That is the thing. Now, if you buy a new house, get an expensive car, how long does the increased happiness and satisfaction last before you completely get used to it? I used to think that, okay, with great difficulty, you have got a new flat or something like that. And then you are like, okay, this might last at least for a lifetime. It will last a lifetime. I'll be able to increase my happiness level to a degree that can last a lifetime. Some people might think. Some people might think at least 4 or 5 years, you have achieved something with great difficulty. But in reality, it turns out that it's only around 2, 3 months. When you get a new flat or a new car or get even a new job or get a substantial raise in your salary, it lasts, the happiness level, the increase in that happiness lasts only for maybe a few months at best. Quite a depressing state of events, isn't it? This is called a hedonic adaptation. There's a genetic set point, which is largely genetic. We cannot say it's completely genetic, but your happiness levels are slowly fluctuating on that level. Now, it seems that if you follow this path of running on the treadmill, you are like a hamster or a rat running on the wheel as shown here. And this is quite a depressing view, isn't it? This troubled me a lot, right? But you see, don't lose hope. When you have positive self-evaluation, when we have it, you do become slightly bit happier. Meaningful work, positive relationships, and good experiences. If you accumulate these kind of things, it has been shown that you can have slightly happier lives, but it is quite difficult to achieve that kind of thing. You have to be mindful about it. If you run on that treadmill and concentrate on achieving material things, you will not become happy. You need positive relationships, positive, meaningful work, all that. But even these things may not be in your control completely, isn't it? So these things that is a problem, but it is possible that you can kind of invest in these things and try. And there is some evidence that mindfulness meditation and certain practices, I'm not going into the details here, can make some change. But what will not make a change is running on that treadmill mindlessly and then trying to achieve something and thinking that that will get you lasting happiness. That seems to be a mistake. Okay. So we are basically like people, if you run like that, we are basically like a joker, blindfolded and going through life automatically on self-pilot mode. Of course, see, money can't buy happiness means that the mindless accumulation of excess wealth ultimately leads to diminishing returns of happiness. Studies have shown that as people become generally wealthier and they're able to afford basic necessities, they always become happier. Countries become happier like that. So this is not an endorsement of keeping people poor or content with less. All right. Now, another thing which I learned through my life is that now we come to money per se. It is useful to think about money as to be measured in time, not assets. All right. Your choice on how you can spend your time. Suppose I can spend my time with the way I want, then I am quite rich. But if your time is belongs to somebody else, that and you're forced to follow that routine, you may not be that much that rich, isn't it? A way of measuring wealth. I first came across this idea in Richard Kiyosaki's book, The Cash Flow Quadrant, and I found it quite useful. Suppose you stop working today. How long can you and your dependents survive maintaining your present lifestyle? That's a useful way of looking at money or how rich you are. Suppose you are earning okay, 5 lakhs per month. You have a huge income. But suppose your um, current um, expense is 2.5 lakhs and you have 2.5 lakhs loan EMI. The moment you stop working, 2.5 lakh will go needs to go to your EMI, and you have 2.5 lakhs as expense. How will you get that money? How will you be able to afford your present lifestyle? Depends on your present lifestyle and expense. You will not be able to maintain it. That doesn't make you particularly rich, even though your income is 5 lakh rupees per month. On the other hand, suppose my expense is around 30,000 rupees per month, and I have 30,000 rupees income from a rental unit, which I have, or from my investments in, say, mutual funds. There or some other company throws me a dividend, or from a patent, or from a royalty throws me a dividend of 30,000 rupees per month. It doesn't matter what my income is. If I stop working, I'll be indefinitely be able to spend 30,000 rupees per month. Of course, this has to be adjusted for inflation. With that I am not going into. But that makes me quite rich because the amount of time I can survive without working is quite infinite, infinite into the future. So that makes me quite rich. I hope you understand my point about this. Next, we'll come to a particularly difficult and controversial topic about work. You see, recently, our Narayana Murthy, who is an icon of Indian business and the founder of Infosys, said that you should work 75 hours per week and they should work tirelessly day and night. And he was even in favor of it. Is reported that he was even in favor of amending the labor laws so that we can work more. So we need to progress as a nation. Is it true? I don't think so. I think that's a problem in thinking that way because there are many reasons for that. We'll come into that. For one thing, we are a nation where we do not have enough jobs. So if you work more, what will happen? Is there enough work for everybody? If one person does the job of three people, what will these other two people do? Very uncomfortable questions, isn't it? We glorify work because all throughout our history, we have been dependent on that. As a society, most of the, suppose you look at a hunter gatherer society or any society, say 500 years back, in any part of the world, 95% of people were engaged in growing food, through agriculture, or hunting, fishing. They were trying to get food. And even then, they were not able to feed sometimes members of the society. There used to be famines, there used to be severe scarcity. People used to die of hunger. But that is not the case now. Now you have 2% of people in US, say in a developed country like United States, 2% of people only are doing agriculture. Okay, most other people, with that 2%, they are able to export food to all over the world. And they are completely self-sufficient on food. In India, that's a problem because only around 16% of our income, national GDP, comes from agriculture. But almost 55% of our people are employed in it. So agriculture is not enough to feed these people. So they need to move to manufacturing. And but now we see that with the newer machines and robotics and automation, even manufacturing, around 10% of people, probably just a few percentage of people working quite efficiently along with machines can provide all the manufacturing you need for the entire world. Then comes services. Okay, how much services do you need? IT services, health, um, all these things. Of course, we need people in that, but that is a different problem. And after some time, that also is likely to be solved because how much services actually do we need? Automation may come, efficiency may increase, productivity, energy productivity may increase due to various new technologies. And most of mankind may not need to work that hard, isn't it? But still, we work to, around 60 hours, 70 hours a week, even though our labor laws mandate that you need to work only 48 hours a week. So work is a huge a something that is glorified to excess. There is a historical reason for that, you see, because all of us need to contribute to society. So we hate free riders, isn't it? So we are some of us are working and giving tax and producing, but many are just enjoying the fruits. At least there is a image, or we think like that, even though there are a lot of structural inequality and all that. So we need to understand. So it's a very complex question, very complex and evolving question. Work gives money, meaning, and status. But we need to acquire. So for medicine, so for people like surgeons or an IT professionals or other many people, to acquire skills, you have to work more. You have to be an apprentice. Sacrificing yourself a period of skill acquisition is good, very good, especially for doctors. That time when I presented it, I was saying if poor patients in remote areas are benefited, so you go to rural Andhra or in the northeast or rural parts of North India, Bihar, UP, you need a lot of people, doctors, to go there and sacrifice themselves, build more clinics, work selflessly. And if patients are benefited that way, that is definitely good. But if a doctor is working in a corporate hospital 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and accumulating wealth and status, is that an unadulterated good? Because right now we don't have a dearth of doctors, at least to work in corporate setups. There are enough people who want to work there. So if one person works less, another person can join and share the salary, isn't it? or the fee. Very uncomfortable thing, isn't it, to think about? 2021 World Health Organization study found that working 55 or more hours per week compared to 35 to 40 hours is associated with a 35% higher risk of stroke and 17% higher risk of dying from heart disease. So it is not an unadulterated good. See, people compete for work. That is one downside of work because money, status, and power are basically judged by comparing ourselves with others, especially others of the same status. For example, I will be comparing myself to lawyers, people in my workplace, people in other doctors, especially people in my apartment complex. I will not be comparing myself to Adani or Advani or anything. I will not be comparing myself to a person who works in agricultural land right now, but the same level of people. But the problem is that relative status is what gives me some happiness and success and self uh, esteem. The problem is that you compete for. So working way harder than needed, speeds up the entire treadmill for everyone because everyone needs to work harder so that the relative status they're trying to improve their relative status. And as I said before, if you work 12 hours a day for 7 days a week, we are ultimately robbing someone else of their job. If you really think about it, that what a horrible way of looking at this sacred thing called work, isn't it? It's just almost like a sacrilege. But maybe I'm not sure how you might take it. See, this might create a lot of controversy, I feel. More than happiness, the work. See, I am not, I don't know, maybe I am quite lazy by nature, but somehow I've reached this level. So I'm not justifying myself. But what I am saying is that you need to think about these things. That's what my take on it is. Everyone needs to think about it in the same way. Then only society may change so that everyone can benefit. And this point can be quite controversial, quite controversial. For example, a very large number of people might disagree with me. Please comment about that. Please, you need to ask questions about that. But I feel that we should be aware of how long, whom, and what for you work. Who benefits most from your work? Are you happy doing that kind of work? Are people working with you happy? All these things you need to think about. Okay, now come. Now I am telling you, it's a personal collection. It is my opinion on certain things which I feel are very practical and important, but you may not agree with. Please tell me why you don't agree with me, or why you do agree with me, and what are the nuances and what are your thoughts on that, on happiness and the hedonic treadmill, money, and how what's your attitude to money and time, intrinsic satisfaction and work, and all these things. All right. So we come to the end of this uh, thing. So thank you for listening to me, and please ask questions, which is very important. All right. Thank you.